Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. Last time we did Black Hole, which, while historically relevant, didn't really knock my socks off. Today we're doing a new table. What is it? Centaur. Interesting. I don't recognize this name. It's another 1981 table. Well, it seems to be fairly heavy metal. Centaur 1981 is a challenging table by Jim Patla? I suppose that's Patla, who was responsible for many Bailey hits and also one of the designers of Elvira and the Party Monsters. Those are tables from later on. This game features a cool fantasy theme with excellent black and white graphics and a great audio effects. Accurate players are rewarded with special features that are only activated by completing banks of drop targets in sequence. Features unique to Centaur include the Blue Guardian rollovers, which were the first to include outlane control directed by flippers and equitable multi-ball and the equitable multi-ball. I wonder what equitable means by that. This forces each player to lock their own balls for multi-ball, therefore giving no carryover advantage from a previous player in the multiplayer games. Uh, 3,700 units of this table were produced. You can see whoever wrote the ad copy for this was much more enthusiastic about this table than, say, Black Hole, which probably historically is more relevant. Unfortunately, I think once again we don't have any pro mode, so we can't do a proper table examination. And we can see here that the entire front of this flyer is just Centaur. And then you've got some color on the back. This might be one of those tables that is also targeted to an older audience and might not be appropriate to be in an arcade, which at a certain level I imagine we will run into a historical problem of preservation where the adult tables are just fewer and further to be to find, where the kids' tables have been maintained somewhat. So we're supposed to complete the guardian rollovers, complete orbs in order, complete 1, 2, 3, 4 in order, hit all drop targets, and score 200,000 plus points. So equitable multiple means, I think, at the basic of it, that if you were playing multiple players, which we see there's enough score for 4 players, we could probably also look at the game setup and prove that yes, at least in this case we can play with 4 players, that it would have reset the ball. We also have a different kind of pinball at the top left there, that it has yellow and red streaks, which I assume that's accurate to the original depiction of the table. Sometimes when you have different colored pinballs that are trapped in specific spaces, for instance, like that, they are heavier or lighter, or just maybe even smaller or bigger. That pinball is trapped in a lane, so you have to hit the pinball to then hit the drop down targets multiple times. This does feel very heavy metal, but looking at the art, I'm seeing like thighs and cleavage. I'm not seeing anything too extreme. Although in 1981, I could certainly see a lot of pearl clutching parents saying this is devil worship imagery and things like that. Looks like you have a fairly standard lower play field that, if anything, it feels more standard than most. There seems to be a lane on the left that spins back around. Just 2 bumpers at the top and a 4 upper lanes. Then a lane on the right that seems to hit a standing target. So it's fairly difficult, I think, to get back into the upper playfield. No, not that difficult. Seeing some kind of monsters and heads of monsters, maybe decapitated heads of monsters. Alright. And then there's a lady in leather at the backboard, I just noticed. And then there's a lady with her backside showing at the drain. So you basically need to have the ball in follow mode. I guess all the balls are that color. I didn't accidentally set that skin, did I? I don't think I did. Let's see. Still don't have ball saver modes. We do have a lane select mode, which would come into play. It seems to me like it's weird that there is a blue lit and that's not play again, and these black and red the black and red flippers. Wow. He gave me like a free game. I don't know why. It seems like almost out of pity. Oh, I did select a skin. Alright. Interesting that it skins all the pinballs the same. It's gonna kind of suck if you really do have to spell orbs in order, because that'd be pretty impossible to pull off. There's a lot of speech here, we can already tell. A lot of thematic music. This is definitely a shot of... This is a table where you want to keep the ball up in the higher areas if you can. It's kind of gimmickless compared to Black Hole, which is something we kind of need, frankly, is to have the occasional table that isn't trying to revolutionize anything and is just trying to be a good table. There is a problem certainly here with the visuals in that they are just so contrasting that I'm having a hard time focusing my eyes on the pinball and what I'm actually targeting for. The art is just too good and too interesting. So, it would be nice if there was a pro mode where you could remove that from the table. Although that would look very weird if you simply stripped the entire table and it was just solid wood. And I guess at a certain point, that's the reality of the situation, so... learning to focus your eyes on what's important is part of playing pinball, I suppose. The in-lane and out-lane selectors are adjusted by the flippers also. So, Alright. I just unlocked a multi-ball. And this might be the first time where a multi-ball really sends out more balls if you drain them too early. So you have a, I guess, multi-ball ball saver without it being without having just a normal ball saver feature. I feel like I should have done something at this point to get some of the standard goals done. It also feels like there is a way in which the ball can actually drain out from the in lane to the out lane, and then there's a bumper on the left out lane that doesn't really make sense. I bet the gray balls up at the top left, those drop targets, might indicate how many multi-balls you get in a multi-ball. So there may be a standard goal to just get a 5-ball multi-ball. Otherwise it seems like you're just supposed to spell orbs a bunch and do 1, 2, 3, 4. This does feel like a table that would be playing heavy metal, and instead it is really just focusing on more of a kind of standard set of pinball sound effects. A lot of these sound effects would be very at home in any other table. This does feel like a very traditional Gorgar style table where you're just trying to get your bonus up and your score up. And we know it has a multi-ball too, but that doesn't seem like that's 100% focused on. You know, what I hadn't even thought about is we've been seeing some of these tables put up random numbers in the heads-up display on the right. I completely forgot about the free game matching mechanic. It hasn't been in all the pinball tables, obviously, but yeah, at a certain point they did start giving out pity free games, particularly if you scored pretty low or didn't play for very long, and they would do that by matching the last 2 digits of your score to a supposedly random but not really random number that would pop up. Like, if it was truly random, then 9 out of 10 times minimum it wouldn't match because it wouldn't end in a 0. But it wasn't even that not pseudo-random. It was incredibly pseudo-random because it was literally on like a small randomization factor on a timer. Very often it was programmed to not give you a free game on a free game, so you couldn't potentially win 2 free games in a row. But yeah, now that I remember that feature was eventually introduced, that ball got basically stuck. that would explain a couple times where we've gotten free games, and I've not understood why I would have gotten free games. Not that it matters. Like, credits are there for no reason. It feels like that could have been a added effect, certainly, where you could have animated quarters, stacks of quarters just getting bigger and bigger every time you earn a new credit, or at least have some statistics. These are things that are in Pinball FX2 and almost certainly are also in Pinball FX3. At least there are things like that in Pinball FX2, where Pinball Arcade seems to have fairly dropped the ball as far as adding those features ever and stealing from their competition. Like, Pinball Arcade, as developers, have failed to really embrace the concept of stealing from the competition in the same way that game developers and pinball developers did themselves. If it's a good idea, by all means, copy it and hopefully don't get sued. And it definitely feels odd that I'm now fairly down on Pinball Arcade when I kind of was the exact opposite position 3 years ago when the tables were actually available for purchase and there wasn't the announcement of them pulling their license, Williams and Bailey pulling their licenses from Pinball Arcade. Because at that point, 3 years ago, Pinball FX2 basically only had new tables that felt very weird and weren't attempting at all to be even slightly close to realistic tables. But Pinball FX2, Pinball FX3 evolved, and they started to actually emulate and even try and remaster the old tables. And it did a full 150 or 180. Which I guess maybe makes an argument that maybe FarSight Studios would come out with a Pinball Arcade 2 and get the licenses back at some point, and even one up Pinball FX3. Although at a certain point I'm not sure that would really happen. If anything, I imagine we're due to see a third company come in and step up and add something new, like At Games and their physical pinballs cabinets with LCD screens. But if At Games is going to succeed, they have to A, make their product somewhat accessible, which is fairly expensive, and B, have much better software and much better programming than both Pinball Arcade and Pinball FX. And that's a fairly tall order. It really is a project that would be better suited to be funded by the likes of Sony or Microsoft or even Nintendo. Nintendo would actually be a fairly good publisher to fund the development of a At Games platform. And it would be in line with Nintendo branding, certainly. But having a major company allow you to better negotiate licenses, better fund the development for long amounts of time. This is a fairly dull table, though. Even though I like the art, it's very easy for nothing to go on. Like, I'm hitting a lot of targets that seem lit, and it seems to just be giving me points, and it doesn't even seem to really make sound effects so much when I hit a target. Instead, choosing to do the big spinning sound effect. Like, I'm 20 minutes into this and I'm already fairly bored with it. Once again, this feels like a table that is selling itself more on the heavy metal imagery than a good play field. Selling a little bit on sex too, but not extreme. We've still yet to see anything like a Playboy style table, which even the Playboy pinball table, which I've never seen, I imagine is actually fairly tame by 2021 standards. It sounds like what it's saying is only single value every time I hit the drop down targets, which makes it feel like maybe I could hit the ball hard enough to knock it through a couple of drop down targets, and I just don't feel like that's how drop down targets work. So either that's the case or there's a score multiplier. And I'm not sure what bad move human means. So I think we just got a multi-ball. Hit all the drop down targets. Wouldn't it be crazy if I managed to like get all the wizard goals and all the special goals in less than 30 minutes and then end up just saying, yeah, this is not that interesting of a table. Actually, I imagine that could easily happen, though it would make a lot of sense to not have a lot of fun on a table that is specifically too easy. Final score 0. Did I roll the high score? No, I just think the game glitched there. That was weird. Alright. So, completing the guardian rollovers in the in lanes and out lanes score 5,000 when they're lit. Completing all 4 guardian rollovers launches a ball into play for multi-ball. The ball launched into play is not taken from the balls that were locked by completing the orbs drop targets. Only 1 ball per turn can be launched by completing all 4 guardian rollovers. Centaur has lane changing feature, making it easier to complete the guardian rollovers. Yeah, pretty much impossible to do otherwise. Once a guardian rollover is lit at either in lane or out lane on one side, engaging either flip or toggles the lanes. In the upper corner of the playfield is the chamber. It's a series of in-lane drop targets. When a captive ball is in front of them, shoot the captive ball to hit the drop targets. Hitting the first drop scores 10,000 and 20,000, increases the bonus by 2,000. Hitting the third does 30,000, increases bonus by 3,000. Fourth one does 40,000, increases the bonus by 4,000. Once the fourth drop target is hit, it exposes the left release target. Hitting that scores 50,000, increases the bonus by 5,000, and releases any balls that were locked. So where are we locking balls? That's the weird part. Centaur has a great multi-ball mode that works differently than most tables. Each completed orbs drop target scores 1,000 points and increases the bonus by 1,000 points. Completing the OR and BS at the same time scores 10,000 points and increases the bonus by 5,000. Each time the orbs drop targets are completed in or out of order, it locks a ball or orb for multi-ball. So it's just kind of memorizing that. Up to 4 balls can be locked this way. Completing the orbs drop targets in order locks a ball immediately and launches a ball into play for multiplay. Another ball is launched each time orbs targets are completed in order, up to a maximum of 4 balls for a 5-ball multi-ball. Once 1 or more balls are locked, they can be released with the left release target or the right release target. When the release is lit by completing the 1, 2, 3, 4 target. Right release will also light at the start of the third ball, but pulses on and off every couple seconds. Release ball. Okay. Okay, so we kind of know what's going on there. That's definitely a mess, and then I accidentally brought the skin back. What's funny is it skins not only the ball, but it skins the drop down target. The picture of the pinballs are different color now too. That seems crazy. There is definitely a problem with the idea of trying to have precise shots up the center of the table. That is just not a kind of shot that I would want to have to focus on. So I suppose the question would be, do you want to lock a bunch of orbs balls and try and spell orbs in order? Or do you want to focus on the in lanes? The balls locked do transfer over. So on the third ball, now would be the time to shoot the ball to the far right ramp and get that release shot. But of course that's easier said than done. Well, at least that ball did score. It really sucks to have a successful game and then it not count for some reason because of a glitch. kind of feel like the drop targets on the left side should be more important than they seem to be. We really don't know what Centaur is, storyline-wise. Could be half horse, half man character. And I now see why the in lanes are not lighting up. It's because while you can select in lanes, it's only between the two on each side. So I still would need the ball to go through the in lane twice on the right side to light the right side up. That I really should nudge at that point. That's the only way that makes sense, is to nudge that. If I had hit that with just a little bit more momentum, that would have been a multi-ball. Got the score multiplier up. If I could get the left out lanes, or left in lanes, almost spelled that. The in lanes and out lanes seems very doable. That would just be a matter of time. Why I'm getting scores of 0 seems unfair, and this is another table that doesn't have Pro Mode, which makes me feel like this is a version 1 of the software for Pinball Arcade. And clearly this needs a bug fix. There's no legitimate reason to not have a score lock in. Suppose it's worth mentioning that the bumpers are fairly useless because they're slightly smaller and they're just not being used or doing anything. They're rarely even hitting them. Oh, well, at least I managed to nudge there, even if it didn't succeed. Probably need to nudge at a bit of an angle, which does highlight why the left stick is being used for nudge instead of the D-pad. This really is just another table, though, that highlights the need for a ball saver feature. Just a simplistic concept of giving you 30 seconds before you lose a shoot again feature. It really is just a matter of time, though. Eventually, I will get orbs spelled in order. Eventually, I'll get the in lanes and out lanes spelled. I guess the next question, though, would be, would I have particularly a lot of fun doing that? And sadly, I think the answer to that is pretty much no. Okay. If I can just hit the B, I'd be fairly safe. So it's like 50-50 shot. Well, it would have been a 50-50 shot, but it reset. Yeah, you have a 1 in 4 shot of hitting the right thing originally, and then you have a 1 in 3 shot of hitting the second one, and then you have a 1 in 2 shot of hitting the third one. Then you have no choice but to hit the final one if you are going to hit them. But that would certainly require precision focus on your targeting instead of just focus on keeping the ball in play, which honestly it's often all you can do to just keep the ball in play. I can definitely see a great argument against the idea of having to knock drop-down targets down in order. And I'm glad nearly no other table, I've never seen any other table have that as a function or as a goal. And I'm glad for that. Like, I've never seen this table before, and yeah, once again, well, I like the art. That's about kind of all I can say about it. We're not hitting downright awful or anything like that. The tables do seem to be fine now, as we are into the 1981 era, but there are still a decent collection of tables that I put 10-20 minutes into, and they just don't have that appeal. And hopefully that's because I'm being objective, and it's not because I've just been playing for a while and my opinions are directly related to just a mental or emotional fatigue. We still are at a point though where this is a table that I don't want to put down, and we've consistently seen with the 80s tables that is kind of the point, is that even if they don't play particularly well or they aren't designed particularly well, there's still enough of an appeal and a interest where definitely some of the 60s and some of the 70s tables didn't have that sticking power. And I may have slightly given myself too many options with pinball tables anyways. So from that perspective, owning so many different tables, you would think it would be fairly easy to just get bored with something and move on to the next one. And yet I'm not really having that as a problem yet. I'm not like itching to get to the next tables. Although there are definitely some memorable tables out there that I am looking forward to playing, and I'm a little bit afraid that by the time I get around to the 90s and 2000 tables, I might be just so burned out on pinball in general that I'll barely even play them. Let's give it one more chance, but then I think we'll call it a day. It stinks that you can't, at the very least, play with 5 balls if you're not going to have free play mode. Doesn't feel like you can accurately get the multiplier up as high as you would like it to be. Well, if I hit this S, I may have lit it in order. I may have. It's gonna kind of depend on whether or not it felt like when I hit the O and the R at the same time, whether that counts. You would hope that it would be generous enough to count that as being in order. I guess with each shot, you can practice some more. If I could get the ball to go into the in lane on the right, that would be appreciated. Twice. Get that. Oh. Nope. We're setting ourselves up nicely for a multi-ball. So if I could get the multi-ball, at least that would be something. Let's see. If I hit orb one more time, I'll be lined up for a 5-ball multi-ball. I'm not sure if that top lane unlights when you hit a lit lane or not. Okay. So I need a power shot now on the right lane. To release the multi-ball. And I guess you could continue to try and spell orbs. But nope, bone that up. But at least I got the high score that time. So yeah. There's no table set up. There's nothing special under options. We didn't get orbs in order. We didn't complete the Guardian rollovers. It would be a matter of time to pull that off. There's no pro menu. And there's just no great way to observe that. I guess the guy character, the kind of monstrous character, is the centaur. So he's like half human, half motorcycle. And I assume orbs might be a reference to testicles. I guess that might be the idea. Yeah. There are even like lion-like legs on the back of that motorcycle when you can see that. It's an interesting art aesthetic, certainly, for like comic books and manga. Certainly is all black and white with sometimes red. Well, manga doesn't do red, but I've seen that art aesthetic certainly, and it's interesting and attractive. I just don't feel like it works well for a pinball table, considering how the standard is that every single pinball table is normally bright and colorful. There was definitely a game that came out for the Wii that oddly was for mature, and it was all in black and white with red blood spatters and going very hardcore with its imagery too. And while that did appeal visually, it didn't certainly sell that well. I think mostly because it was not that good of a game. I believe it was called Mad World. I guess at a certain point we will probably run into a table very similar to Centaur in its visual heavy metal aesthetic and just better designed. And while we've had kind of a historically relevant game in Black Hole and somewhat of a dud in Centaur, it's still doing pretty well. And this table, whatever it is, even if it's a dud, Haunted House is almost certainly not going to be a dud. And we still have Pinbot at the very least. Why, honestly, though, there's a decent chance that the next row of 8 pinball tables would actually still have at least 4 really good ones. I'm imagining something like Centaur will feel somewhat like Elvira when we get around to playing Elvira. Also, wouldn't be surprised though if Elvira, which once again doesn't have a pro mode, is not particularly that good of a table, but it's an interesting theme. But yeah, overall, not really a lot to say about that table, and I kind of forced myself to even play for 50 minutes. Not one I probably would come back to, depending on how many achievements I actually could accomplish on other tables. Undoubtedly, if I was going to make it a habit to play a pinball table, say every night or at least once a week, undoubtedly at that frequency, I would go back and play almost every table that exists 1, 2, 3 more times. I've yet to run into a table that I just absolutely hate so much that I'd never want to play it. The closest I've had with that is Genie and Paragon, the ultra wide tables. Everything else is sure playable for at least a game or two. I suppose there is an argument that in the real world, back in the day when you were to pay to play an arcade game, I have probably on average played but somewhere between 6 and 12 games for each table. So you're looking at probably at this point, $60 to $120 worth of virtual credits having been spent in this game. And frankly, the real world cost was somewhat cheaper than that, buying all these tables, but maybe not that much cheaper. I think a lot of the bundles for 4 tables were about $10, which $250 to own a pinball table is not terrible by any means, virtually at least. If you could pay $250 to own a real world pinball table, that'd be amazing. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.